Put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tog tips, and image reviews to help you improve your photography. Here's your host, Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, how we all doing? Listen, thanks for joining me for TogChat episode number 62. Can you believe I've done 62 of these things and I still have no idea what the hell I'm doing? But anyway, listen, I have some cool photos to review tonight, and of course, I'm going to take your questions and do my best to answer them for you live during the show, so stay tuned. And gang, as always, it is awesome to see so many of you here. Please check in for me. James Brown's here, Doreen's here, Troy made it tonight on time. Good job, Troy. Glad to see that you are here on time. Robert Bechtel's here, Steve Trottier, Jeffrey Bates, Jeff Ammerman's here, Cody, Matthew's here, Kim, how you doing? Tony Kigo, congrats on the 24x36 softboxes. Sven's here, Swad, Carl, Linda, all you guys. Like seriously, thank you so much for spending your Monday evening here with me on TogChat. Really, really greatly appreciate it as always. You guys know that my mission is to help photographers like you develop a solid understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. So before we get going, I need all of you take a moment and please tell all your photography friends that we are live streaming right now here on YouTube. Twitter and Facebook are the fastest way to go ahead and get the word out. So hopefully you guys are happy that you have sound tonight. I already had people like begging me before we got started to use the sound. I was really thinking about making it like a no sound Monday kind of program, but I guess I got overruled. So let's jump right in. I just have one thing for you tonight in the photography news department. And I'll be completely honest, I was slacking today, so I didn't get my daily dose of DIYphotography.net, which I highly recommend. But there has been a lot of crying in this last week ever since Google announced that they were discontinuing all the support for the Nik Collection plugins. Now, listen, I'm as bummed as anybody else that Silver Effects Pro is going to disappear, but I gotta be honest, gang, stop whining. I mean, did you really think this was going to or wasn't going to happen when Google made it free and a year ago they announced that they were going to stop research and development? I mean, come on. So, for those of you that want to be activists, there is a petition at change.org to save the Nik Collection. James Brown, thank you so much. James, there's a great business model that I hadn't considered. James just gave me a super chat here just because I have the sound turned on. So I think maybe that's what I need to start doing is I'm going to charge in the future for sound. Sound like a good idea to me. So listen, at change.org, there is a petition. It's called Save the Nik Collection. Now, it was started by a German photographer, which is fairly fitting since Nik software actually began as Nik Multimedia in Hamburg, Germany. The petition has almost reached its goal, so if you're so inclined, the link is in the video description below. Go ahead, add your name to the list. But before you do, you might be interested to know that a quick search at change.org will tell you that there are over 2,040 petitions on change.org that are aimed at trying to get Google to change something. So not sure how successful this one will be. And I don't know about you, but I'm almost more disappointed about the possibility of losing the Snapseed app for my iPhone, which is officially part of the Nik Collection, than I am about losing any of the Photoshop plugins. I mean, come on, somebody's going to step in with an awesome black and white conversion utility. And to be fair, there are already a few pretty good ones out there, but it's just that they're not standalone or plugins for Photoshop yet. But you know what'll happen. So hey, listen, on another little piece of news before we dive in for the night, I frequently get asked about my gear. And you guys know I'm not a gear junkie. I don't do all the gear reviews and that type of stuff. But I want to switch screens here and just point something out to you. If you visit my website, which is www.joeedelman.com, scroll down the right-hand column, and you will eventually come across a set of pictures of gear. If you click on that gear, it's going to take you to a page on the website with these cool little image sets embedded, and you can see what's in my still camera case, what's in my video case, my favorite studio gadgets, and my portable lighting kit. I am putting this information together with a website called kit.com. It allows me to share with you all of my gear, plus give you some comments and background about why I use the specific gear. And also, if you are so inclined and you are interested in a piece of gear, you can shop for it at Amazon, B&H Photo, eBay, and indeed, yes, full disclosure, it's an affiliate setup, so it helps support a little bit of what I am doing here on the YouTube channel. And even if it's just a matter of, you're just curious and you want to see what gear I'm using and why I'm using it, go right ahead, check that out. It's on the right-hand column of pretty much every single page on the website. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the photo reviews. So remember, if you would like to have your photo reviewed here on TogChat, all you have to do is join my Facebook group. Each week I take 5 photos from the Facebook group, and to be fair, these are not 5 of the best photos or 5 of the worst photos. These are 5 photos that I think I can use to teach all of you a little bit of the thought process behind this photography stuff. So the link for the Facebook group is in the description below. My buddy Chad's going to paste it here into the chat window if you want to be able to click over from the chat window. But when you get there, remember, if you've never heard me talk about it before, it is not your normal Facebook group. Take a couple days and lurk. In fact, when you join the group, you'll be asked to watch a video. It's a welcome video. Shocker, more of me talking, right? But it's going to tell you a little bit about how the group works, and most importantly, it's going to tell you click on the Photos tab. The Photos tab is like an encyclopedia of how to take really cool images of people. And the best part of it is, I'm not the one teaching those lessons. It's all of you that are creating those lessons. So check it out. I hope you guys will. But that's where the photos come from that we talk about here in the group. And again, the link is in the description below. So I would love to be looking at one of your images in the very near future. All right, so let me switch my screen over here, and we've got a really interesting set of pictures to start the night with. So this comes to us from Geoff Tudno in north of Wales, across the pond, as they say. All the camera stats you can see are up in the upper left-hand corner for this. So as always, when people post photos in the group, they're required to give me some specific background information. So let me give you the feedback on what Geoff has provided to us, and then we can look at these photos and we can make some evaluations from there. So this shot that you're looking at right now is the first one in a series of photos that he did. It's no flash, natural light only. He used a Lightroom preset that's called Voodoo Lounge, and then he tweaked it a little bit to his taste. So the way Geoff explained it, he likes to tell a story with his outdoor shoots. He's not one for saying to a model, hey, let's go down to the woods, fire off a couple pictures. So this photo is of a friend of his who also happens to be a photographer. Now, Geoff made it a point to note that he loves working with a model who understands things from both sides of the camera because it makes his job easier. So, I'm a big fan of the Jack of all trades, master of none. I like it when people kind of stick to their core competency. But I must say that for someone who is in the learning curve, trying to build a portfolio, build out their skills, it's actually a pretty good idea. If you have a friend who is a good subject that you can work with, certainly it can help because it does take a little bit of the pressure off of you. And they also have kind of a really good sense of what you're going through and what you're trying to accomplish. So together, now this is some serious planning here, they created a fictional character called Esme Carter. So this character, Esme, lives, as he tells me, Geoff, Esme lives on her wits in a post-apocalyptic world. So this was definitely not about glamour or anything like that. It's all about telling the story, as Geoff puts it. The feeling that he was going for is one of desolation and loneliness, looking at the sun through bleached out apocalyptic clouds. So the last question I ask everybody to give me an answer to is, if you could do it again, what would you do differently? Geoff's response, more dirt on her face, maybe a gel to change the background color a little bit, etc. Okay, so my response to Geoff, full disclosure, I was a little tough on Geoff. Because here's the thing, and this is part of why I picked this, and interestingly enough, when my conversation continued with Geoff, which I'm going to share with you, we learned some really cool things. So I personally hate it when somebody shows me a picture and tells me this big long story behind the picture. Well, I was after this kind of mood and I wanted the picture to evoke this emotion. And I'm not mocking Geoff. Lots of people do this. Lots of people do it. The reason I hate it, because that's a strong word, I hate it because it's telling me how I'm supposed to feel about the photograph. Now, for those of you that have been around for a while, have heard me talk about this before. For those of you that maybe haven't, here's something that as a photographer, you have to understand. When you take a picture, you have an experience with that camera, with that subject, with that moment. When you take that photograph and then you show it to someone, it doesn't matter if it's a relative, a spouse, or a friend, or a complete stranger, no one else will have the same experience that you did. It's actually not possible for that to happen. So their experience will be completely different. So as a creative, in order to be successful, when I say successful, I don't mean rich and famous, I just mean to produce good work and to do it consistently, you've got to be willing to kind of let go of your work. Because once you show it to the world, you lose control over it. And what I frequently find, which is part 2 of why I don't like hearing what the image is supposed to evoke emotionally, is that frequently I find that the experience the photographer, and maybe the photographer and the model are having, was so kind of in sync with each other, and maybe even so intense for them, but it was just that. It was something that they experienced, but not something that they managed to adequately or effectively communicate in the photo. So interestingly enough, now in my Facebook group, in Geoff's defense, you're only allowed to post one photo at a time. So Geoff followed the rules. He picked this as kind of his best shot, but then he told me the story. So I told Geoff, I was like, Geoff, I gotta be honest, okay? When I look at this photo, I kind of don't get the idea that she's living, by her wits. And the post-apocalyptic thing, I can maybe buy that simply because, it's a look very similar to what you see in movies and that kind of stuff. But then we got to the point where he said, quote, "The feeling I'm going for is one of desolation and loneliness, looking at the sun through a bleached out post-apocalyptic cloud." So for me, desolation needs to show the subject being very small in a very big open space. And I don't have that here. So this is like a close-up where I'm getting elements, and I'm not a big sci-fi fan. I will admit, my wife is the sci-fi queen. So I wind up watching lots of sci-fi and movies about, post-apocalyptic worlds and all that kind of stuff. I just didn't see that here. So Geoff, said, fair point. There is a whole series. And I told Geoff, I'd love to see the series, since you have this really detailed story that's really thought out. And you guys know I'm all about planning. I'm all about that idea of collaborating with somebody and kind of having a game plan. So I was really curious to see the rest of his story. So indeed, Geoff was kind enough to share the rest of the images. So he shared a total of 5. So I want to show you guys, here is the second shot that he showed, which to me has a very, very different feel, but at least we are getting a little bit more of that. There's a feeling of space here. And so we're getting a little bit more sense of, okay, she's alone, things are tough, etc. That's kind of what I'm reading. And then kind of similarly, this one here. And then we had another close-up. This would probably be, in all fairness, this would probably be my least favorite of the set as it relates to the story. And it's mainly because there's a lot of blue in the sky. So I would be looking for, the gray clouds and the overcast and a lot of drama in the sky. Like, to me, Geoff, this one might almost be really cool if you converted it to black and white and really, really juiced the contrast and the fine detail in the clouds. This might be really awesome, okay? Bring up a little bit of the shadow detail in her eyes. But then we got to this last shot. This one for me, I'm not a huge fan of her expression, but it's not bad. But this one for me gets closer to the story. And so again, my point and my reason for wanting to share this was by no means wanting to kind of, take Geoff's pictures apart. I love the fact that they got together and like styled it by putting his costumes together, came up with this concept. But I wanted to point out, and this is something for all of you to learn, be cautious about sharing that story. And understand that the more detail you share with the story, the higher you're raising the bar in terms of how great a job did you do in communicating that story. So, overall, I have to be honest. I think that your story is a little better than your storytelling, Geoff. But what I do like, and it's definitely not my kind of post-processing, this Voodoo plugin that you have, but I actually kind of like it. I like the kind of white and grayness of it. I love, in the case of this last shot where things are fairly bleached out, and even going back to the first shot where there's a lot more contrast, the colors are bleached. I almost feel that given your whole thing about looking at the sun, Kim, thank you so much for your super chat. I really, really appreciate that, Kim. I almost feel like giving your comment about looking at the sun through the bleached out clouds, I'd almost love to see a little bit more reflection. Now, I don't know if that was possible with these goggles, but I think that could be really, really interesting in developing this. So here's really where I wanted to go with this, Geoff. Do more. I'm hoping that you'll take it constructively that I've challenged the effectiveness of the way you've told the story, because I really kind of like what you're trying to do. I think it's neat. I mean, one of the things that is cool about sci-fi, as much as I'm not a sci-fi person, what's cool about sci-fi is it does force us to imagine something that isn't. And obviously something that we really hope doesn't happen in most cases, but it forces us to imagine something that isn't. So as much as sci-fi frequently, and I'm guilty of this, I look at sci-fi kind of on the same level as I look at a B-grade movie. I'm just not a big fan of it. But I have to give credit to people that do sci-fi and at least do sci-fi well, because they actually oftentimes have to work a lot harder to sell the story, to really make it believable. Because when you watch a movie, let's face it, storytelling, it's about getting people to suspend disbelief. It's getting them to buy into it. So there is a lot of psychology behind it. So given that this person is a friend of yours, and given that she was obviously, a very willing accomplice, clearly along with you put in a lot of effort into this, I would love to see you further develop this a little bit more and see what you can come up with, because I really do think that you could come up with some really cool stuff with a little bit more effort. So I will look forward to potentially seeing a little bit more from you down the road, okay? All right, so let me switch that screen back here. Now, guys, listen, if you have questions for tonight, please be sure to stay tuned. I'll do a Q&A session right after the photo reviews. So if you have a question that you really want to get answered tonight, I've been posting a link in the chat window. It's also in the description below the video. My buddy Chad's going to post it in again. But if you have a question that you really want to get answered, don't forget that super chat. Super chat guarantees that I will answer your question during this TogChat, even if I have to stay late. Just click on the $ that's in the bottom left of your chat window, and you can show your support and appreciation for as little as $1, and I will make sure that I get to your questions for sure, okay? So, and of course, how could I forget? Let's get that other social media stuff out of the way, right? So do me a favor, please, if you haven't done it already, follow, like, thumbs up, all that good stuff. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, those are the places where I'm most active. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do. And of course, the thumbs up here on the video, always appreciated. If those of you that were here last week when we had the Flat Earthers attack, which was lots of fun, and the cool part of it is that's a real thing. I had no idea. So if you guys have never heard of this or are not aware of this, I learned something with all that thing. They call it a flat earther flash mob. So actually, if you go to YouTube and you search for flash mob flat earthers or flat earther flash mob Joe Edelman, what they do is they run this attack on a YouTube live stream and they record it, and then they post a video of it it's like their bragging thing. So I wound up on the flash mob flat earthers channel with a video of the whole attack happening. I watched a couple of other channels, and I guess I wasn't that interesting, because what happens apparently with most channels, they just let it go and this thing just runs and runs and runs. Well, those of you that were here last week, you know I shut the chat off, so I guess I spoiled their fun. But anyway, in the process, they gave me like 160 thumbs down as a result of doing that. So it just, you know, hey, we live and learn, right? It was an interesting experience, but hopefully we will not get spammed that way again, because I also have the slow mode on in the chat tonight. So that should resolve that. So as always, though, seriously, all of your support on social media, definitely appreciated. It's great to see you guys on all of these different platforms, okay? So let's switch back over to photo number 2. So this comes to us from Heiko Kanzler in Spain. Nice to see a micro 4/3 camera here. For some reason, I don't get a lot of images that are submitted that are shot on micro 4/3. Full disclosure, in the last couple of weeks, I've been using my Panasonic GH4 a lot more just for fun to shoot stills of my grandson, mainly. I gotta tell you, they are really, really amazing cameras. I highly underestimated the quality of image that these cameras could put out. So this past weekend, I actually did a headshot sitting with the Panasonic G4. I also did shots with the D800. I wasn't ready to go quite out on a limb yet, but I will tell you straight up, the images that I shot, they're going to be used for social media and an 8x10 print. And I have absolutely no qualms whatsoever about using the images out of the GH4 for my client professionally. Really, really impressive. So it's really nice to see a micro 4/3 image in here. And also, Mitch, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate the super chat. It's greatly appreciated, gang. So Heiko told me that he's been shooting for just under a year. One of his challenges when he's shooting people like this is that he has a very small space in his house, which doesn't really allow him to do full-length pictures. So right out of the box, I want to say, bravo! Full-length pictures are not only more challenging as a new photographer, but they are more difficult because the poses are more challenging, the lighting is more challenging. So here you've been able to essentially do a full-length picture without doing a full-length picture. So excellent, okay? He lit this with a Godox SK400. He's using a 105 centimeter Brawley softbox umbrella on camera left. So this subject is a good friend of his, and he wanted to create a casual portrait that was just a little bit sensual. That was the goal. He also wanted to try out 2 large modifiers that he just purchased, but he wound up only using the one. So they tried a couple of other outfits, but this is the one that kind of came close to the feel that he was after. Now, in answer to the "did you achieve your goal" question, Heiko says that he liked it at first, but after a couple days, he began feeling that the mood really wasn't quite what he was after. This shot appears a little bit more casual and relaxed and not so much sensual. So as far as what would he change, he says mainly the lighting, hands down. He used the single large Brawley box on camera left, and while he said it ultimately doesn't look bad, he thinks it would look a little bit better with more separation on camera right. So you guys have heard me say many, many times, just to hopefully make you feel a little bit better, Heiko, there is no real rule that says you have to have separation in the background. Somewhere along the line, people learn that, and it like becomes ingrained in their heads that you always have to have separation from the background. I'm going to tell you straight up that I do not mind her hair and her body blending into the background. Would it be okay if you had some separation? Yes, but I'll tell you honestly, if I were to do this, I think if you were to add a rim light, which is the first thing that most people do, I think it destroys the mood that you're going after here. Whether it's this casual feel that you got or whether it's a more sexy and sensual feel, I really feel it destroys the mood, because the minute you put that rim in, it's going to start to take on a little bit more of kind of a commercial type feel. So in order to get the separation, my advice would be plant a strobe on the floor or off to the side, and maybe with a snoot, and just try and get a little bit of gray. And when I say a little bit of gray, I'm talking dark gray. So just ever so slight, a little bit of detail in that background to create the separation, but I honestly would not light here on the side. You know, part of getting this whole seductive feel is by hiding things. So I will tell you, you know, some of the things that you could do, and especially again, if this is a young lady that you know, that you've worked with, if she is comfortable with you, I do agree with you that it's a little bit more casual than sensual. Part of the challenge here and hopefully you learn from this, and I don't mean this to sound inappropriate in any way, this young lady is gorgeous. So if you are fortunate enough to know her on a personal level, believe me, I could understand in a heartbeat how it would be really easy to get lost thinking one emotion, but shooting something completely different. Because, like, look at those eyes. I mean, you could stare at those eyes forever, okay? So, yeah, to me, her expression, it looks a little tentative. I don't want to say scared. In fact, somebody in the group commented maybe that she looks a little scared or apprehensive. I don't know that I quite get that. I could see how somebody would get that, but I get a little, almost a little apprehensive here. So the suggestions that I would have for you to try and achieve your goal, and this is of course going to depend on her comfort level, but if you stick with this lighting where the light's falling off, one of the things that you could do that would be really cool is have her unbutton the shirt, start to open it up just a little bit on this side. We're not looking to see any breast or anything like that, but on this side, slide it off her shoulder. Her white skin is going to make sure that you can see a little bit of her shoulder here. It's going to be fading off into darkness. This hand, you want to soften it, either by bringing it down lower and kind of tucking it in, or having her do like a soft thing on the side of the arm here, okay? So that you're not having the whole hand like sticking out on the side. That would be one way that you could approach it. The only other thing that I would recommend to you is potentially go with a different color for her to sit on. Maybe some black material. And I totally get the tight space situation. You're kind of trying to make the best of it. I would encourage you, don't be afraid to put her on black material. I think, especially given that these leggings or pantyhose that she's wearing, are kind of see-through and have the flesh material through it, she's still going to separate from that black. And it's okay if that black doesn't go pitch black. Obviously, you've got, really nice deep blacks in the background. This black is going to pick up just a little bit of grayness to it because that's where the light's at. That's okay. It doesn't bother me at all. And then a little post-processing thing. And the reason I'm saying this in post-processing, gang, if I knew that Heiko was working in a bigger space, I would make it a lighting factor. But given that you're working in a tight space, it's going to be hard for you to control. Her arm and elbow here is very bright. And with this face, you do not want something taking attention away from this face. Very, very important. So in a perfect scenario, you're going to lift the light up a little higher, you're going to move it over a little bit more, and you're going to get it away from the elbow. In a tight space, this elbow's not blown out. It's not like the detail's not there. So just go ahead and burn this down a little bit. Okay? And even for that matter, this elbow, this arm, all this, tone it down just a little bit so that this side of her face is the brightest spot of the image. And that's going to just lock people in there. And then looking down here and looking at what she's wearing and wondering what's going on, that becomes the tug of war. It's the tug of war of like, God, look how gorgeous she is. It's kind of sexy. Like, what's this all about? So that would be my advice there. But you definitely don't want this area being such a big bright spot, because this is the biggest bright spot on the image. And that's what you want to reduce a little bit. And then when you do this again, because I really do hope you do this again, and I hope to see it in my group, let's see all that eye. That's a Joe thing. But when you've got eyes that are that amazing, don't hide those eyes. You want those eyes to work for you all the way. It's not that you have to move your lights. A lot of people say, I should have moved the light. No, you should have moved the hair. All you have to do is slide that hair back a little bit. Slide it back a little bit. You're going to have the same effect, but you're going to see the eyes, that much more impact in your shot. I really think it'll pay off for you, but very, very cool shot. Okay? All right, gang. Next up, we have a picture here from Francis in the Philippines. All your camera specs again are up here at the top left. So this is another one that I picked from some teaching moments. And Francis kind of already figured out some of it, but I wanted to try and help out a little bit and be able to give you guys also a little bit of insight here. So this picture was done for practice and, as Francis says, also for submission to a glamour magazine. So I got to stop right there and say that, well, I'm not sure that I would be practicing if I'm planning on submitting. When you're planning on submitting, I don't care what your skill level is. I don't care if you're brand new to the game or if you've been doing it for 20 years. If you're going to submit, you better be beyond the practice and better be doing your best stuff. So if nothing else, maybe a practice session for a future shoot, which is going to be submitted to a glamour magazine, but I don't see both of those things coming out of the same shoot ever, okay? His goal was to showcase summer, which it's summer there in the Philippines now, and also, obviously, glamour. So he used 2 strobes, a Yangwano 560 at about quarter power on a 40-inch by 60-inch softbox as the main light. And that's set up over here on camera right and above. And then at half power, so a little bit brighter, and directly behind the model, slightly at camera left, is another strobe that's just out of frame here as a rim light. And we can see we've got some glare coming back in, or some glare, excuse me, flare coming back in, okay? So when asked what he would change, he would like to change her right arm position, which we can see here, yes, and also the hair and her expression. Okay, so Francis, I will basically tell you yes, 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 and yes, okay? The arm position is awkward, but let's look at why, okay? You kind of had the right idea, but the wrong execution. So it's not all bad. What she's doing with her hands is fine, but switch them. Her right hand, the camera left hand, this is the one that should be up here kind of hanging on to hair. And given that her hair swept to the other side, that's okay. She can come up and she can tuck one thumb underneath the strap. Don't do the cheesy pull the strap out stuff. No, no. Just tuck one thumb underneath the strap and just do a little twist of the hand. So we're getting soft, thin hand. It works fine. So we're switching the hands. And then one other important piece, on this arm, which she's resting on now, never let your model hyperextend the elbow. In other words, that's when that lock that elbow in. Don't let them lock it in, because that's where the arm looks really unnatural and it forces the shoulder up, all that kind of stuff. So the model's actually got to work a little bit in a pose like this. You want her leaning where it's relaxed and where it's casual, but she's also got to relax that elbow. It's really, really important, which means she's going to be working. So if you take too long and you shoot too long, you're going to get about 10 or 15 frames in it. You're going to start to see tension in your model's face. You need to be aware of that as the photographer and give her breaks. Even if you need 100 frames, that's fine. Give her breaks in between. They lock their arm because that makes it a lot easier. Easier doesn't look good. One of the best rules, and I mean rule of thumb for posing, is to forget all these different poses that everybody tries to teach you and sell you books and videos and tutorials about. Don't waste your money on that stuff. That stuff sucks. And yes, I just insulted a lot of really great photographers. Here's why it sucks, just so you understand. Not that what they wrote or what they're teaching is bad. It's that it works for the people they're using. So for instance, if you have a fashion photographer doing a posing book, all of their models are 5'10" or 5'11" in size 0s and 2s. So their poses look great on them. If you're photographing a person that's 5'4" and 150 pounds, those poses are not going to work. So you want to learn how to pose, you've got to learn how to see. Pay attention and really look at what your subject's doing and pay most attention to body language, okay? But if you're looking for a rule of thumb that will always help you, always, this is a rule of thumb that will never get you into trouble when posing a model. If it bends, bend it. When you take joints and make them solid and stiff, like her arm, all that stuff, it usually looks stiff and awkward. If it bends, bend it, okay? So, you switch the arms. The other reason for switching the arms, Francis, is when you have a girl that's buxom like that, and especially, you know, traditionally Asian women are not known for being terribly buxom. So, since she is, you don't want to be misshaping that and pushing arms across the body. So, if we switched it the way I've described, we actually get to see that cleavage. Because if you're shooting glamour and swimsuits, that cleavage is kind of important. That's something that people want to see. So you definitely don't want something crossing the body in that sense. Now, if I'm going to be really picky to help you out with a couple other things, while we're talking about the pose first, and then I want to go back to your lighting, have her extend this foot a little bit more so that we don't go from the knee to the foot. It's like she's got no lower portion to her leg. We don't need to see the leg like straight out. However, I will let you know that if this foot came out and extended past the bottom one, it would actually be a nice, really sweet pose, okay? But But if nothing else, just don't have it going straight back to where it disappears, which is what's happening now, okay? Your challenge with your backlighting, I actually like the idea that you had for the backlighting. And so what I'm about to tell you, depending on your location, it's possible you weren't able to do this. I think that this light would have worked a lot better, one, if it was a little bit higher so you didn't have the flare. I'm not a fan of the flare. I find it a distraction in this shot. I don't feel that it's adding anything. But if you had it directly behind her over here where you see my mouse, more to camera right, yeah, you're still gonna have a problem here. You gotta fix that hair. But that's one of those things you have to learn to see that, gang. That hair was messy when you were taking the picture. You could see it, it was there, it was in front of you, so you have no excuse for missing that, unfortunately. That's one of the things you got to learn to see. Success in this kind of photography, it's in the details, gang. It's always in the details, okay? So you fix the hair. I'd love to see the light moved over here so that it's less of a one-sided rim and almost more of a hair light, which you guys have heard me say before. I'm not a big fan of hair lights, so to speak, but in this case, I think it would have been great, and it still would have given you this feeling of the shadow with the light coming down from behind her. And then one last thing, either while you're shooting, or you could do this in post really easy, but while you're shooting, get rid of those strings. They're not adding anything to the shot. They're a distraction right now. They're taking away from her shape. You could take those out in post, but it'd certainly be a lot easier when you're shooting. You can see those strings are there. All you got to do is get the model, take the strings, tuck them up underneath the clasp of the bikini in the back, and you're good to go. Problem solved, okay? So I love where you're headed with this, Francis, I'm sorry, but I would love to see you go back and really try this again. So indeed, use this one as your practice and now go back and shoot it for real. Make sure you have a hair and makeup person with you, and literally when they're done the hair and makeup, you don't let them sit down or go take a cigarette break. They need to be on the set with you. They need to be on the set right over your shoulder watching and stopping you. And even if you don't want them talking and interrupting what's going on with you and the model, tell them, like I said, if you see something, tap me on the shoulder, whatever. But you set up a way of communicating. It's just super, super important, but you need to take care of these details. And this young lady is gorgeous. So don't hide the assets, okay? You get that arm out of the way, get the pose more relaxed, and you'll be gold here. You've definitely got a great subject to work with, okay? All right, next up, number 4 comes to us from London, England, Arnab. All the stats up there in the top. Gosh, I was here doing TogChat when all the news came in over the Ariana Grande thing. So for all of you that are across the pond in the UK, our thoughts are with you. I have relatives in London, England. My mother was a World War II baby. So it's a country that is important and dear to me. Really, really, really sorry for everything that's going on. And really, really, really sorry that we have a president that's been so disrespectful towards you through this event. So anyway, that being said, all the stats are right there on the top. By the way, before we go any further, this is just a really cool shot, period. But let me give you the background. Arnab tells us that this was a spot that he had wanted to use for over a year, if not longer. The challenge was finding the right subject. So key point here, gang. This photograph started because of the location. So it was an idea that developed in his head based on the location, and then it was a matter of finding the right subject and the right things to put in that location, which I love this idea. I do this all the time. I've told you guys before, I frequently walk around and I'll shoot locations with my iPhone so that I kind of have them as like a visual idea file that I can go through and say, hey, this would be a cool spot to go to, or, I could do something really cool here. It just kind of triggers my memory. It's like my own portable Pinterest boards, in my back pocket, okay? So the way he did the shot, and I do have a behind the scenes shot to show you here. He was lying on the floor looking up at his subject. He originally was going for a little bit more of a central composition, meaning he was going to kind of do the symmetry thing and put the subject right in the middle, which I think actually would have been cool, but I'm really glad he didn't. And I have to admit, I think I would have approached it the same way. Like, this is like screaming, because you guys know I like symmetry. So for me, I would have been very inclined to say, yep, let's stick the subject right in the middle and go from there. But as he worked the scene, which is something you hear me say do all the time, work your shot, he realized that he liked things better with things more to one side. And I completely agree, Arnab. I think that's a great job that you did here. So he lit this with a bare flash on camera left. Normally, he's a modifier guy like me, but in this case, he was just really feeling in his gut that he needed to go with a hard light. He really felt that was going to work best. In terms of his processing, he used Capture One Pro. That was for his initial exposure and contrast settings, clarity, and color toning. Then in Photoshop, he did some minor dodge and burn and finishing, finishing touches to the color grading. And then he went back to Capture One to sharpen the image and add some grain. James Parrish is asking about the dot down in the bottom corner. Sit tight, James. You'll see in just a second, okay? So overall, he's very happy with how it turned out. It definitely has the kind of cinematic feel that he was after. If he was going to change anything, he says that he would maybe go with different clothing to give it a little bit more of a stylistic vibe. So first of all, since some people are wondering about the little black thing in the corner, let's switch over to the behind the scenes. So James, the black thing in the corner is probably a door hinge, or it's possibly this gadget that's up here on the wall. I don't know. In fact, yeah, it's not going to be a door hinge because he's shooting down. So it's probably one of these gadgets that's up here on the wall, but it's part of the architecture. I know some people are going to argue, gosh, maybe he should have taken it out. Maybe. Honestly, it doesn't faze me too much. Would it be wrong to take it out? No, not at all. So let's go back to this real quick. We can see we've got the stand, we've got the speed light over here, distance to the subject. Looks like it's about 6, maybe 7 feet traveling distance on the throw. And just based on what I'm seeing here, Arnab did not tell me this, but based on what I'm seeing, it would appear to me that he's got the zoom head on the strobe zoomed out a little bit because it doesn't look like there's a huge spread of light. And I could be completely wrong, guys, but just based on what I'm seeing in my experience, I have a feeling he's got that zoom head zoomed in just a little bit on the strobe. So Arnab, as far as the clothing idea goes, I actually really kind of like the clothing, especially with this guy with the little man bun up top and all that kind of stuff. I love it. If I was going to do anything different, other than we all know Joe would probably not have the watch, but honestly, the watch doesn't bother me in this shot. It seriously doesn't. It fits with the whole look and feel. My thing, I really wish his eyes weren't shoved into the corner. That's really the only thing I'm going to give you. So, and I'm going to label this like really big letters. This is opinion in this case. I do feel my version would make it better, but I really love your shot. If he was looking in the direction of where his eyes are, so he's down here instead of taking his pupils out, to the side, I think you have an even stronger image yet. But especially in terms of your idea for kind of the cinematic feel and all that, I think you did a wonderful job. I have to say, congratulations. I think that was a great job. Okay? All right, gang, last one here, and I'm going to show you a little Photoshop thing here, all right? So this one comes to us from kind of right down the road from me. This is from Mike Miller, who is in Thurmont, Maryland. All of your tech specs are up here in the top. This was kind of an exciting one that I wanted to talk about for a couple of reasons. Number one, for Mike, this was the first job that he received completely from social media marketing after watching my TogChat. So number one, Mike, congratulations. Number two, I'm glad it helped a little bit, okay? So the subject wanted something to celebrate her upcoming graduation. So he negotiated the price and the number of files that he was going to be delivered. They scheduled a shoot to take place in her apartment near the college campus, and then on campus outdoors with her boyfriend. So in this particular shot, he lit it with two Yangwano 685 speedlights. The main modifier was a Westcott 26-inch rapid box softbox. He had that slightly above camera to camera right. And then he used a shoot-through umbrella on camera left that was about 4 feet high to light the body. And he used a third flash to light the background. In the first few shots that he had, the background appeared kind of like a really kind of dingy gray. But overall, he's pleased with the expression. She had just finished making the little message on her cap, so she was really excited and was very fun. She had a lot of fun as well. Overall, his biggest issue is he's not that pleased with the spill that he got from the background and the flash and the shadow that it created on her face. Now, he was very honest with us, which is great. And I love to hear this because, believe me, you're all gonna run into this. What happened was he forgot the stand, the last stand for the background flash. So he pretty much had to put it like on a short dresser on camera right, and the angle of the flash was too wide. So it was spilling. You can see it's spilling onto the gown down here. You can tell there's a little bit of highlighting hitting the face here. He, obviously kicking himself, feels he should have paid more attention to the placement, but he's still not happy with kind of the brightness or the whiteness of the background. Subject's really happy, so that's great, but the background and the shadow on her face are driving him crazy. So he would have liked the hair have been a little bit cleaner. He did ask her before they started shooting if she'd like to brush it, but she was really happy with her hair. That's kind of how she wears it. So cool, and that's fine. So what I did is I asked Mike if he would share with me his raw file because I wanted to be able to show you guys a little thing or two really quick here. And we're going to do this really fast because I want to get to the Q&A. We're not going to turn this to a Photoshop thing, but the raw file, so just to bring us up to speed, here's Mike's raw file. So he was gutsy enough to let me show the raw file. You can see here that we've got a little bit more kind of shiny spots on her face, which he took out. You can see they're gone in the finished file. A little bit more shadowing, and there's a little more definition in the laugh lines and that type of stuff. I'm going to zoom in here kind of really quick just so we can see a little bit better. So that's kind of where he wound up, and I'm sure it's maybe hard to tell in the video, but the background's not like white. It's got a little bit of yellow going into it. So what I did earlier today is I took Mike's raw file, went into Camera Raw and into Photoshop, and then I did a real quick retouch just to show how to solve some of the problems. So I'm going to play you a little video clip here, and I'm just going to talk through it really fast. So I'm not going to slow it down or anything like that. What I will do for the folks that are members of my Patreon group, I will post the full-length version of it. It's only about 7 minutes long, but I'm going to give you kind of an abbreviated version now. So let me click and get started here. So here you're going to see the file in Camera Raw. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the eyedropper tool. I'm going to select that background, which cleans up the color just a little bit to work with there. I push the vibrance up to about 30. I hit the clarity to about 5. I'm going to go ahead and sharpen it to 50. And then I'm going to check off Remove Chromatic Aberration, set the lens profile to the lens that he's using. And then I'm going to go back to the hue, saturation, and luminance layer, panel. And I'm going to bring up the magentas, the blues, the cyans, the greens, just to pop that saturation in those just a little bit to give them a little bit more oomph. Okay? And we're getting an echo. Sorry guys, let me just make a little audio change here real quick. All right, that should have just killed the echo, guys. Let me know if that went away. Okay? Hopefully that just solved the problem there. All right, give me a heads up, gang, on that echo. Okay. So yeah, there's only one mic, Troy, but that should have shut it off, gang. Let me know. You guys can follow along. You can see all the steps that are happening here now. I'm adding. Still, we got the echo going, guys. All right, I apologize. Since you're hearing the echo, I really do not know why I'm getting the echo off of this. It's not, somebody even sent me a message and it's not the G4, unfortunately. I've got all the audio pieces ticked off. Let me give you the short version of what I did, guys, okay? Because I want to make sure that we get to our Q&A tonight. Here is the finished image that I came up with. So we had Mike's initial image. We had the finished image. In fact, what I'll do, gang, is I'll post that video in the Facebook group, not just in Patreon, but I'll post it in the Facebook group. So if you're not a member of Facebook, make sure you join. You'll be able to see it. I'll go ahead and I'll record a little voiceover for it so you get the voiceover without the echo and all that stuff. So I'll put that up there tomorrow. It won't go up tonight, but I'll put that up there tomorrow so you can check it out. So basically all I did is I wound up selecting the background, creating an adjustment layer. I did it with levels, increased the brightness, and blurred that adjustment layer by about 15 pixels, and that was it. The other things that I did that are noticeably different than what Mike is, in my opinion, Mike, with all the work that you did on her face trying to take shadows out, you really kind of started to flatten her face. You lost a lot of the depth, and you have to be careful with that. So I used the trick that I've shown before. It's on YouTube. It's called How to Fix Shiny Skin in Photoshop and Lightroom. I used that trick, left some of the shine in. Some shine is natural, but I dialed it way down. Here's the raw file so you can see how much shine there is. Here's where we finished. And of course, brought the color saturation up to really give the image some pop. So, overall, Mike, my advice to you is don't beat yourself up too much. This was your first time at doing a gig like this. What you learned is, number one, be more careful when you're packing. Number two, make sure that when things aren't going quite right, slow down. That's the best thing to do, is slow down, pause, do your tests, and don't be afraid to say to your client, and you don't have to say like, I'm screwed, I have no idea what's going on. No, of course not. There used to be a TV commercial back in the 1980s. It was a deodorant commercial for women, and they would show women going on interviews, and the tagline was, never let them see you sweat, and they wanted you to use this deodorant, right? But indeed, never let them see you sweat. So if something's not going right, you're gonna say, you know what, this background's good, but I'm not quite getting what it is, and I don't know if maybe it's the ambient light in here. So let me try a few more things because I want this to be perfect for you. Now you've just bought yourself some time. That doesn't make you look like an idiot. It doesn't make you look stupid. I still say things like that if I need to, okay? And do more tests, figure out what you got to do, and that's how you're going to solve these problems. I think you're being a little too tough on yourself with regards to the light on her face. This is not a glamour shot. It's not the kind of picture where, you want no shadows. In fact, to be honest with you, Mike, I'm more concerned with the fact that let me make this larger here. I'm more concerned with having this really low catch light from the fact that you set your camera left modifier at 4 feet high, which is below her eyes. Our brain is wired to expect light to come from above, not below. So even though you're looking to light her whole body, you're using a big modifier. Raise it up so that catch light is at least going to be just above her eyes. It doesn't have to be 7 feet in the air, but trust me, raise it up, okay? In tight spaces, it can be a little bit more difficult, but if space will allow you, also keep in mind that if you're going to raise up, the further you back it up, the more coverage you're going to get on her body. That's the inverse square law and the angles of incidence working for you to let that light spread and basically hit your whole subject without blowing out the top part compared to the bottom part. If you're working in a really tight space, then you're going to have a little bit of light fall off at the bottom. But if you think about it, what would have been the big deal if this got a little bit darker on her at the bottom? You're still going to light the background separately. So again, gang, I apologize for the echo. Not sure what was going on there. I will post the walkthrough, that short walkthrough with a recorded audio tomorrow in the Facebook group. And so for all of you that are my patrons also, I know that you're in Facebook, so look for it there. I'll share it with everyone since I showed it here and wasn't able to get it to work. Okay? All right, gang, so it is time for Q&A. And the good part is you guys have been busy. There's like some really good questions floating around in here already. So let me just grab my list here and see what we've got. So the first question I have tonight comes to us from Eric. And Eric's question is, what's the best way to shoot a bride in a white wedding dress outdoors against a white background and not let the dress blend into said background, in this case, a barn? So it's a white barn? Really? Okay. So here's the thing, Eric. You're forgetting one of the most important elements of photography. That's light. You're thinking white on white, it disappears. Well, if they're lit the same, sure. You need to make sure that you're using shadows. So you can do that a couple ways. Let's say that it's a bright, sunny day. Try and do the shot with the white bride or the white dress in front of the white barn early in the day or later in the day, when the sun is lower and it's going to come across. That way, the dress is going to be lighter on one side, but has shadow detail all the way across on the opposite side of the sun, which is going to help separate it from the barn. If that's not an option, try and light the bride independently, meaning maybe you can put her in shade, or if you can have somebody hold a scrim over her head to create the shade, then light her with a strobe. The most important thing, believe it or not, it's not the lighting, it's your exposure. If you get your exposure spot on, you'll be fine. If you wind up overexposing this shot, and for that matter, even underexposing it a lot, then you're going to be in deep trouble. So exposure is the first priority. Get a proper exposure. But basically, you use shadows to separate her. That's really all you need to do. Don't overthink that process. White on white is not that difficult. Just use shadows. That's going to be the key. That doesn't mean that you have to have nasty shadows on the bride's face. So let's just say that, you know, the sun's coming from over here. Don't have the bride look this way, or don't have the bride look this way. Have the bride cheat that way. And then you're going to get nice light. She can still look at you and cheat her face a little bit, okay? Or even for that matter, you can angle her body a little bit into it. So it's going to light the front of her. It's going to light the white wall, but you'll get definition and shading and shadows right down along here. Mike, I see you're here. I'm glad you were able to make it, Mike. Yeah, seriously. I mean, don't beat yourself up too much. It's a great learning experience. And I promise you, I'll post that video tomorrow for the Photoshop walkthrough. So, Eric, I have a feeling you were looking for something a little bit more detailed from me, but I got to be honest, it is that simple. So there's one more important piece of advice that I'm going to give you, though. I will assume, since you're asking this question today, that this wedding is happening very soon, maybe even this coming weekend. That means you need to get your butt out to that barn before the weekend. If you're getting paid, if you are the photographer of record for this wedding, Eric, in good conscience, do not just show up and hope you're going to figure it out. This is the most important day of that young couple's life. If you are taking money and you are the photographer on record, you have a responsibility to get it right. So do the professional thing. Get there in advance. If you're not sure about the time of day, you can download an app. You can put it on your iPad, you can put it on your iPhone, or even your Android devices. The one that I use, my favorite, is an app called Light Track. I don't know if you guys are going to be, it's going to be out of focus, but it's right up here. It's called Light Track, LIGHTTRAC. I'll find the link for it and put it in the description after the show is over. And now that I just said that, I got $10 that says Troy Hall is already Googling the link. Then he's going to paste it in the chat window for me any second now, because Troy's so awesome and he does that. But basically, if you know the location of the barn, this will allow you to type in the location and bring it up on Google Maps. Then you can put the actual date of the wedding. You can put the times. And if you watch here, the red line, it's going around in a circle. That is whatever time of day I'm setting it to. The blue line is, sorry, let me get the right times here. Okay, so the blue line is sunset, that's over here, and the yellow line is sunrise. So if I'm going to do the shot at 8 o'clock in the morning, I know that's where the sun's going to be. If I'm going to do the shot at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I know that's where the sun is going to be. It's a great tool for being able to plan shots on location. So my point is, Eric, don't leave, and this applies to any of you, but Eric, since you asked the question, you're getting the lecture, okay? There we go, Chad's got it. Thank you, Chad. Make sure that you are prepared for it. Just simply that you are concerned about doing that shot, make sure that you are prepared when you get there. So if you have to, drive there in advance. Even if it's a matter of taking a piece of white paper or a white Walmart reflector and setting it up, taping it to a stand just with a clamp and shooting it to see how you can separate it. There's a million ways you can practice. You don't have to have the bride. You don't even have to have another person. But don't show up and hope that you get it right. Not on a wedding day. Please don't be that photographer. Okay? Next question. Arnab asks, any tips for when you're on a portrait shoot where nothing is working? For example, you're not getting the expressions you want, but you don't want the subject to think he or she is doing something wrong. Hey, I think I just answered that. Fake it till you make it, Arnab. That's it. You know, part of it is be honest, okay? But the other part is, indeed, fake it till you make it. So, you know, in the previous situation, it was a matter of the photographer trying to get the lighting together, okay? So that's a case where, indeed, you fake it. And you don't let them know that you're lost completely. By all means, tell them that you're having a problem with a little piece of lighting. I did a shoot in a hotel room in Boston last Friday, which, by the way, my patrons are going to be able to see not only behind the scenes of this hotel room shoot, but also the entire editing process. I already explained to them in our patron Zoom chat last Friday. And for those of you that aren't a member of Patreon yet, the link is in the description below. Please check it out. You can support what I'm doing here on YouTube and that for as little as $1 per month. It's $12 per year. That's like less than 3 cups of coffee at Starbucks. And that gets you exclusive access to content that you don't get here on YouTube and that you don't get on Facebook. But this shoot, Arnab, was going just sideways in so many different ways. So I talk about how I did all the problem solving that. But a big part of what I did during that day was literally tell the girl, like I'm not happy with what's happening. I want to try a couple other things and we'll move forward. It really comes down to the psychology and the psychology of dealing with your subject. In your example, you're not happy with the expressions you're getting with your subject. So that indicates potentially that your subject is nervous. That indicates potentially that your subject is, that you're not connecting with your subject. So indeed, those are things that are a little different. That's not one of those situations where you can say, this just isn't working, like your expressions suck. Not going to be a good way to motivate your subject. So that's one of those scenarios where literally you kind of have to take a whole different, direction. But it's less about being a photographer at that point, and it's more about really just paying attention to people. And that always starts with put yourself in their shoes. Imagine if you were the subject. Imagine what it's like. Imagine how you're going to feel, etc. Okay? Next question. Linda, what makes a photo amazing rather than just good? I guess if you're Jason Lanier, it means that you took the picture, right? Ooh, did I say that? Gosh, wow, I said that. No, what makes a picture amazing or makes a picture good, there are a couple ways that gets defined. So to be fair, I made that really snipey comment because he will frequently stand there while he's taking a picture and you hear him say, oh my God, look how amazing that is. Look how incredible that is. He's excited about it. And that's cool. I want to be clear. That's cool. I do that, not out loud, but I do that. I will do it out loud if I think that that's going to encourage my subject. Yes. Okay. But do I think my pictures are amazing? I honestly don't. And that's not a modesty thing because of what I told you guys in the beginning when we were talking about the stories and Jeff's photograph of the apocalyptic scenario. I don't expect anyone else to have the same experience with my question or with my photo, as I did. So that being said, I always think that I fall a little bit short because I can't expect them to be as excited as me. So I guess for me, the way I would define that, the photo is amazing if people connect with it. The coolest thing, my most favorite response for any of my photos is when somebody looks at a picture and says, wow. I love that response so much better than, that's a great picture. Or, my gosh, you're a good photographer. And of course, any of those responses is much better than, wow, you must have a really good camera, right? So we've all had that happen. I think it's really a matter of, do people connect with it? Do people universally engage with it and appreciate it? and have a response to it. So, sadly, it's almost kind of like the whole idea of likes, not that likes are the way we should be judging our pictures, but certainly if a picture gets a ton more likes, well, it could be for a couple reasons. One, it could be because you have a lot more friends. So you can't judge it solely. If you only have 30 friends, well, then the most likes you can get is 30. So if you get 30 likes and you only have 30 friends, that's a pretty freaking amazing response, okay? So you can't be comparing your numbers to other people, but indeed, it's how do people respond to it? So for me, I guess that's the answer. So let's see, here we go. Next question. Alorski has a Nikon D7200 and wants to shoot events without using flash. Any suggestions or presets with regards to the D7000 series? Well, Alorski, the biggest problem you have there is if you're not going to use flash in the event, I can't give you suggestions to presets or exposures. And please don't ask that question. It's the wrong question. It's the worst question you could ask. Because anybody that answers that question in a forum like this, they don't know how the event is lit. I don't know how bright it is. I don't know what kind of lighting it is. I don't know what type of lighting it is. Is it fluorescent? Is it tungsten? Is it daylight? I don't know. All I can tell you is that unfortunately, the D7000 series, they're not the greatest cameras in the world, especially for low light. So the minute you start really pushing that ISO up, things are going to get a little risky. So I would actually say to you, depending on what your needs are, which you don't really tell me here in this question, I wouldn't make it all or nothing, meaning I wouldn't completely write off the idea of using a flash. Certainly, you don't want to use direct flash, but potentially bounce flash or fill flash in an event situation is going to be very, very helpful because then you're able to kind of enhance the ambient light to get better lighting. So I would encourage you to consider that possibility. Let's see, James Brown had a question here. White balance. What's the best method for changing environments? Okay, so that's not a climate change question. James, do you mean like if you're like taking pictures outside in the sunlight 1 second and then you walk inside and it's tungsten lighting? I'm going to assume that's what you mean. If that's the case, honestly, auto white balance. I will tell you guys sincerely, no soda tonight. Hang on. There we go. YouTube water, the best. Where is it? There it is. YouTube water, see? Auto white balance on most cameras today is pretty freaking amazing. Now, this is coming from the guy that does the whole auto is a 4-letter word. So yeah, you still got to pay attention. But if I'm kind of doing run and gun, or it is an event, or maybe a wedding where I'm moving quickly, I have no problem going with auto white balance, but I'm going to check. I'm going to chimp from time to time. So indeed, if I'm outside shooting where I know it's going to be just fine, and then I run inside, and I've got to shoot right away because something's happening, and I don't want to miss it, do my shots real quick, but then I'm going to chimp just to make sure that I don't keep shooting in this indoor environment and the auto white balance is rendering it yellow or blue or whatever. Keeping in mind also that if I'm shooting raw, it's going to be an easy fix later, so it's no reason to panic. So between auto white balance being amazing and between raw being wonderful, I would just shoot on auto white balance. I do in the studio frequently do custom white balance when I'm setting my lighting, but it's in the studio. I have more time. I have more control. There's no reason for me to rush. But in an event situation, I would go auto white balance all the way, okay? So another question here from, let's see, Brian. First time working with a makeup artist. Yay, good for you. I have some videos that you need to watch. She's new to doing makeup for photography. We're going to discuss our ideas and approach over coffee. Even though I am on a budget, I plan on paying her for her time. What would be the best way to gauge her potential/ability if she doesn't have a portfolio yet? What are the few things that are important to look for? Her photos are on social media. Oh, the photos that she has on social media look promising. Oh, okay, awesome. So a couple things here, Brian. Let me first, gotta get my plug in, guys, right? Especially since I'm overtime, so we're on my dime now, okay? Make sure that you go to my YouTube channel and, wow, could I pick like a worse frame to stop on right there? I have a knack for doing that. It's like, how can I make myself look really stupid? Here it is. for whatever reason, it's not letting me use the search tool here. So let's see if I can. It's like frozen, and I cannot get past this page on my YouTube channel. So here, let's try this one more time. So it is not going to let me search. Wow, I cannot believe that. So by the way, for those of you that haven't seen it yet, this is a great commercial for it. This is the new user interface for YouTube. I'm a beta tester, so I got to play with it early. Of course, it'll be a lot better if it ever actually works, since it's not working right now. So Brian, I'm sorry, but there are 2 videos that I have on my channel. If you go and you find the little magnifier glass button and you do a search, you can search for makeup artists. And there's 2 videos about working with makeup artists, so you need to watch those. But to get back to your specific question, how do you gauge their potential? You want to look for, honestly, first impressions. First impressions is a very big deal. When you're looking at the photographs that are on social media, do the women look attractive? Do they look overly made up? I mean, it really does depend on what are you trying to do in these pictures. So you're hiring a makeup artist. Are you doing a set of nice portraits? Or are you trying to do something really crazy and creative? So the obvious thing is, if you're trying to do nice portraits and the person's showing nothing but like smoky eyes and crazy color painted all over the face, well, they may not be the best person for you to work with for the first time. Vice versa, if all the person has is pictures where the people look very pretty and kind of like they're barely wearing any makeup, and your plan is to have them do something like really outrageous and wild, well, you need to make sure that you're really having discussions with them and really trying to gauge their sense of confidence. Are they going to be able to accomplish that? From there, look for a sense of detail. You know, are the lines clear? When you look closely around the edges of the lips, are there smudges? Chad, thank you for finding those videos. I could not get that. I don't know why YouTube is not working on this system, but it's not. So look for the details. Look for the lines. Look for the way the colors are around the eyes. Are they too dark? In other words, when you see the person's face in the picture, is the first thing that you see the makeup? If that's what you want and you're going for something crazy, cool. If you're trying to do a nice headshot, you don't want people to see the makeup. Remember, when you do a headshot, the headshot is not about the photographer. So it's not about how cool the lighting or the background is. It's not about the makeup. It's not about the hair. It's not about the outfit. Definitely not about the jewelry. It's about the person and their personality. So keep it simple. But watch those 2 videos, Brian. You'll get a lot of really good tips in those videos. The links are in the chat window there. And I think that will definitely help you. If you still have questions after you watch that, join the Facebook group if you're not already there. Ask questions in the group. We can definitely help you out with that a lot, okay? Steven has a question. Is there much difference in the quality of cheap softboxes to top brands, or are you just paying for name? Yes and no and yes and kind of sorta and sometimes and maybe. So what that means is the most frequent difference in cheap to expensive is actually going to be feature set. So believe it or not, a softbox isn't a softbox isn't a softbox. Some softboxes have just a front diffuser. Others have a baffle in the middle. I love and prefer the ones with a baffle in the middle. Some softboxes are white on the inside, some are silver, some are gold. Some are multi, colors inside that you can change. Some come with grids, some don't. So and indeed, the more expensive ones tend to be a little bit better made in terms of better quality, etc. I've used the PhotoFlex brand. I don't get paid by PhotoFlex. You guys know I had that video about their Octodome a little while ago. I've used the PhotoFlex brand for about 30 years now, and it's not one of the cheapest brands. It is one of the few things that I've always been willing to spend a little bit more money for because I like their design. I like the simplicity of use. The stuff just works really, really well for me. But can you go out and buy inexpensive? In fact, I have a video coming up shortly where I use a little $20 Neewer shoot-through umbrella to create the same kind of light that you get out of a beauty dish. And it works just fine for 20 bucks compared to the price of most beauty dishes. So you have to factor in how much you're going to use it, what kind of wear and tear is it going to get. Certainly, the cheaper gear is not going to last as well. I can tell you that the $20 Neewer umbrella that I purchased, if I was going to use it on a day-to-day basis, it would probably last me about a month, given the fact that it's going to get very, very little use and it's going to show up in an occasional YouTube video. It's going to be, absolutely fine. Okay, not going to be a big deal. So, okay, gang, last question for the night, and then I'm going to say goodnight. Mitch McCoy, do you or have you ever done stock photography as a business? What do you think of this business model in general? So do I know? Have I ever? Yes, about 30 years ago, literally back when it was 35 millimeter transparencies, and it actually paid real money. What I think the business model in general, there's an old phrase, I don't mean this to be crass, folks, but it's a good way to relate it. Stock photography today is kind of a whore's business. It just is, okay? It's a difficult way to make money, and that's because you have so many online outlets to purchase stock from, and to purchase it dirt cheap. If you do your research, you will find that there are some photographers, in fact, most of them are actually Russian. I don't know why that is, but they just happen to be Russian, that are making huge bank doing stock photography. But what you'll also find if you do your research on these photographers, these guys shoot 7 days a week. They have like 6 or 7 people working for them that are also shooting. And so basically what they're doing is they're just pumping out volume and volume and volume and volume. And they'll do something as simple as saying, okay, we're going to photograph a spinner. Yes, Joe has a spinner. Why do we have these things? Really? Why do we have these? Anyway, they'll take a picture of this. They'll do pictures of people going, and that. And then literally they'll take 50 pictures of it from different angles just sitting on a white tabletop. Because indeed, somebody will wind up buying it, okay? So, but they turn out literally hundreds of thousands of images a month. So they're making their money on volume. That's hard for one person to do. So, and let's face it, because most people also, in the real world are good at one style of photography and not many, many styles and genres. So I would not encourage anybody to look at stock photography as a way to kind of start a photography business. If you find yourself shooting the right kind of stuff, would it be a way to supplement your income? Absolutely. That would totally work. Okay. So I'm going to answer one quick question here I see in the chat room, and I'm going to give the guy a hard time because he posted in there and he didn't post it in the question. But then I'm going to say goodnight, game. James Parrish. Next time, James, type it in that little URL that I gave you. But his question is, my issue is leaving a cold room to go outside. For instance, moisture. Summertime, that's a big problem. We have 2 puppies. We tend to keep our house very cool. So in the middle of the summer, if I take my gear and run outside, it's like dripping wet right away. The lens is all fogged up, and I'm of course panicked because I know I've also got moisture then inside the lens, on my sensor, everywhere. Somebody said take the lens off before going outside. That helps. You could make it a 10-minute process where and I've done this sadly, where I go from the house to the garage because the garage is warmer, and then I'll open the garage door but not go out into the sunlight and kind of work my way out. I never have the time to do that. I'll tell you a cool little trick. Go to the supermarket and get like the gallon size Ziploc sandwich bags, like the big ones, or get the 2-quart size, better yet. Okay, put your camera in one of those bags before you go outside. Zip it up, go outside. That takes the cool air with it. The cool air warms up slowly, and you don't get the moisture and the condensation on the camera. You get it on the outside of the bag, okay? So, James, your company internet won't allow you to connect. You're at work and you're goofing off. All right, well, I guess I got to let you slide then since you're at work and you're choosing to watch me. So that's cool. But I hope that answer helped you. It does work. I've done it. Ziploc bags, they're awesome. You get like the quart size or the gallon size ones because they're also nice and thick. So, it's a little bit bulky in the sense if you've got a camera bag, you want to carry stuff, you got to get all your gear insulated in that first. But it works because it carries the cool air out and then the cool air warms up slower. Okay? All right, gang. So Parminda, you just got here and I'm going to say goodnight. I'm like already 16 minutes over schedule. So seriously, gang, thank you all for hanging out with me tonight and for spending another Monday evening here. It is time to wrap up this episode of TogChat. So hopefully all of you will get out there and put all this information to use. So please be sure to subscribe and comment. And then, gang, whatever you do, please make sure you remember these words. Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.